You can do nearly every beer style.
Stop automatically when the simple sugar are consumed.
You pitch the yeast and you make it.
We are on the good way with that yeast.
You need to try it. So I'm Gabriela Montandon, the Head of Research and Development in Fermentis.
So my name is Philippe Janssens and I'm the Technical Brewer Manager within Fermentis. Today I'm very happy to debate about the SafBrew LA-02.
SafBrew LA-02 is a Torulaspora delbrueckii yeast, which is a non-Saccharomyces yeast used for brewing beers without or very low amounts of alcohol. History behind LA-02 is that we wanted to address one of the biggest needs of the industry currently, which is brewing flavorful beers with less or no alcohol. We must produce and must bring solutions to this industry. Solutions that will bring flavor, will bring complexity or bring quality in a large sense, but needs also to match different beer styles. Because we want today to have the same flavor and the same complexity and the same pleasure with these products in the absence of alcohol. And this already is important on a technical perspective. Because with alcohol production, you do also have production of other flavors that are very important to the final beer. And we are resolving this challenge with specific microorganisms and specific process too, that we bring qualitative beers with restricted fermentation, yet that are dressed and bringing very good base for the brewers to work with.
And the market of the NOLO beer increased drastically. I can say that the annual growth rate is around 8%. So it means that it's important, like we are a yeast producer, to have a diversity in our portfolio for the brewer that would be able to produce NOLO beer.
Our R&D team surpassed too many challenges, and as well as Fermentis being supplier of dried products is very important for us to have the right technology to dry that specific microorganism. And we also learn with other sectors in some extent, and the R&D was then challenged with this new microorganism, and they were two, and the first time using a non-Saccharomyces for NOLO production for beer application.
The specificity of this microorganism is that it's a maltose negative and that is a POF negative. So this microorganism will not use the ferulic acid that is used by the SafBrew LA-01, and so will not produce any phenolic flavor. On top of it as well, the simple sugar, they are reducing a little bit the consumption of the reducing sugar because they have no invertase enzyme. So it means that all the sugar will be assimilated on a different way with less consumption of the simple sugar, meaning that we will produce less alcohol with the same amount of sugar. And the other, and on top of it, it is a neutral yeast. So it means that this yeast will produce a neutral beer that will be very nice base for the brewer to diversify it by using some specific malt, using by specific hops or specific process to enhance some characteristic, to enhance some aromatic fraction coming from other raw materials. There are some brewers and key account brewers that they use some aromatic fraction that represent the signature of their product. And so you can integrate the signature of your product in this base to produce a very nice beer.
A non-alcoholic beer should be seen as a different type of beverage. It's still malt-based, but how we always understood beer, there was always in some degree alcohol. And why the brewers that are working with Saccharomyces should never have fear of using a non-Saccharomyces, because nothing really changes on the process part, apart from one specific criterion. We are brewing our wort. There will be worts that are more adapted to the others for this kind of beer. But one point is, this kind of beer production, you will have a lot of residual sugar and alcohol that was and has been always a protective element to that liquid. When you don't have enough alcohol and still a lot of residual sugars, you will have in your environment another microorganisms that will like to stay together in that liquid. So the main difference here from a brewer, in most cases, production will be the same, but you will need to stop that fermentation to prevent a specific contamination. If you are brewing a beer and you are using many yeasts, although we know in environment we perhaps are the ones that clean the best our equipments, but if you have few cells of your other yeast for conventional beer, they can potentially visit that wort, and we don't want that. Why we don't want? Because it will ferment and produce alcohol. It's not because it's dangerous per se, but your product will be out of target. So it's an opportunity for learning, because most of us brewers, we learn how to produce alcohol and alcoholic beverage, with few of us understanding non-alcoholic beverage production. And here we target a very precise and controlled fermentation, with also controlling in time. You want really to control the beginning of fermentation till the simple sugars is gone. In our case, because we have done a lot of tests and we know where you can go, where you should not go. Where you should not go, believing that the risk you have is to have alcohol production, but they will not be done by the microorganism itself, but the contaminants, if it's the case. So I wouldn't be afraid just to keep hygiene and keep the process quick and sustainable, that we are able to produce the same beers over and over, non-alcoholic and low alcohol beers at the same way.
I would say risk zero doesn't exist, but it's very limited risk. I would even say it's negligible. Because what? There are two reasons. The first reason is that non-Saccharomyces microorganisms grow much slower than a regular Saccharomyces. It means that the risk is limited, because at the same time we will have population completely different. On top of it, we have, as mentioned, a maltose negative strain. So it stops automatically when the simple sugar are consumed. This is a POF negative, so there will be no fingerprint on phenolic character. So I would say, to me, there is basically no risk.
And it's very unique for that specific segment in beer, because it allows brewers to produce beers without or very low amount of alcohol and very neutral and free of off flavors. That say you will not encounter sulfuric notes that can be unpleasant in some extent. You will not have phenolic notes, because some beer styles, phenolic characteristic can be seen as off. And on contrary, you will have a very gentle flavor profile, mild, with very mild fruity and floral notes, depend on conditions you apply.
We have different specificity. The SafBrew LA-01 is invertase positive. The neutrality is not really respected, because there is a footprint, there is a characteristic of that yeast in the beer with some phenolic compounds, phenolic character. On the other side, if we have the SafBrew LA-02, we have less production of alcohol, we have no phenols, and we have the neutrality. So between the SafBrew LA-01 and the SafBrew LA-02, I would say technically there is no preference. There is no bad choice. It's really a question of taste. Question of taste and what you would like to do with the beer. So you produce a beer with the SafBrew LA-01, you know, this little spicy, little phenols, some aromas. Okay, you can sell it like that. If you want to use a more neutral base to produce some other things, or playing with the raw materials to give some other flavor to your beer, use the SafBrew LA-02.
you can do nearly every beer style.
Any type. Any type. It's not a specific type.
In the end will be that touch from the brewer to work with the raw materials, malts and hops and process, because that yeast will modify very little that wort. It will just make sure reducing some aldehydes and making sure that the beer is not worty. And but that very small amount of alcohol should be compensated with other raw materials as per every non-alcoholic beer. So brewers today, a very good non-alcoholic beer with very low alcohol content rely also on the other ingredients in some extent, because the yeast is not the real protagonist, but just a helping that wort remains with no alcohol or very low amounts. Producing nearly every beer style, because in the end of the day, the beer style will be that combination. And now you have a low alcohol beer base, where your malts and your hops will then build that style. In the past, beer styles, they were also very influenced by the yeast type because of the amount of alcohol, the amount of the degree of attenuation, specific aromas of fermentation produced. But now this is somehow a bit far from the scene, because you don't want the alcohol and you will need to compensate. SafBrew LA-02, it's especially for beers that you want that neutrality, because it's very mild, fruity, floral character, and especially the beers and beer styles that are phenolic flavor negative. So meaning LA-02 is perfect for the larger amount of beer style.
Because the yeast, it's neutral, consume very low sugar, and is POF negative. So you can use this thing, this base, let's say, to diversify your recipe and to provide, to communicate some specific taste by some specific ingredients, as I already mentioned before.
On the other hand, which is very complementary, and therefore I believe in Fermentis we are now with two solutions that can really go very wide on beer styles in non-alcoholic class. The SafBrew LA-01 produces phenolic character, which is very important as well for the flavor profile in some specific styles of beer, especially wheat-based beers or styles that you want the spicy note, in which with SafBrew LA-02 you won't have it from the yeast per se, but of course the spicy characters could also be added from other ingredients, but not from the yeast. So with these two solutions, the brewers today with SafBrew LA-01 and SafBrew LA-02, they are able to produce NOLO beers with and without phenolic characters, and this will play a serious importance to a portfolio of non-alcoholic beer for the beer industry.
The first thing that is really critical and important is to separate the yeast line. I mean, the line for the regular yeast and the line to use the SafBrew LA-02 should be completely physically separated. Any mix, any cross-contamination between the yeast will be a risk. And I would say, I would love to document a little bit more. A contamination of a Torulaspora delbrueckii in a regular yeast of the brewery, as mentioned before, present no risk or very negligible risk. I would say close to zero. But the reverse is a disaster. If you have a contamination of the, let's say, the culture yeast of the brewery, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae that is regularly used in the brewery, to the Torulaspora delbrueckii, that the damage will be huge, because we don't know the risk. It's certainly a maltose positive. We don't know if it's a POF positive or POF negative. And we don't know what aroma they will provide. But it's for sure modifying certainly and significantly the profile of the beer produced normally with the SafBrew LA-02 on a pure way.
Starting using SafBrew LA-02 or whatever you go to a non-alcoholic sector, you need to think already from the recipe base. You want to choose the right ingredients. You also want to have some right density. You don't necessarily want to go so high because fermentation and sugar fermentation it's not the priority here. It's quite the opposite. So you need to adjust that wort and the density of wort. Brewers will also adjust differently their sugar content. They may want to use different malts and different hop techniques to increase mouthfeel of the beer, because now you play without alcohol, and alcohol per se is very important on the mouthfeel perception, but as well exhaustion of aromas. Now you are not having this, so you want to play with other ingredients. So brewer using SafBrew LA-02, they need to think already on the recipe, adjusting the sugar content, adjusting levels of pH in the final beer, because the fermentation is very restrained. So you will need to do technical adjustment that the final beer is more similar to the target style you want, which is challenging, but is an opportunity because you have that beer style, for instance, that you always knew with an alcohol, but has certain pH, certain aromatic profile, and you want to mimic in a low alcohol version, which will be the yeast, but as well the combination of raw materials and process that will make it.
Generally, rule that is necessary for the brewer, and they know it, but it's to pay attention to the sanitation of the installation. So what we call, in technical terms, the CIP, cleaning in place. That is absolutely critical. And for example, you need to start to brew and to use the SafBrew LA-02 just after a cleaning. If you have a sequence of different process, of different yeast that is used, certainly separate it and use it just after the cleaning to limit any possible contamination that may exist in a brewery, because the purity doesn't exist in microbiology.
The problem we will have here, it's more different from a normal brewing scheme. When you are fermenting a conventional beer, you want that the yeast finish. Okay, you want to make sure you wait till the yeast is attenuating. So a fermentation stops when it stops, ideally. When you are brewing a NOLO beer with SafBrew LA-02 or LA-01, you want to make sure that is finished earlier, for the reason why the simple sugars normally are fermented 24 to 48 hours. After that, that yeast will not do anything anymore, your main inocula. What will happen is you will give the chance to possible contaminants, and that's what we don't want.
When the beer is produced with the LA-02, we need to pasteurize the beer, because today there is no other solution, but as the risk to have a microorganism that is maltose positive, even at a limited amount in the population of the LA-02, is too risky to offer the beer to the consumer. So this is why we highly recommend to pasteurize the beer with a minimum of 50 PUs. And the risk will be nothing, negligible. So cleaning is very important. Conducting the fermentation is important. Crash cooling after the fermentation is finished. Filtration to remove the microorganism is important. And pasteurization at the end. If you respect all those things from a technical point of view, you will be able to produce very nice beer without problems.
So we want to make sure the brewers understand that using these solutions is key. They are reliable. You will have the same beers over and over again, but you need to make sure the process is controlled. You don't want to let more hours or more days. You want to make sure you will stop that fermentation and you are ready to go to finalize your recipe.
If you have any question or any comments regarding the use of that product, specifically SafBrew LA-01 or SafBrew LA-02, which are maltose negative, there needs to be, let's say, deal on the same way. Don't hesitate to ask to the competent people from Fermentis. Contact us by email.
The first time I taste beers brewed with SafBrew LA-02, there is that sense, that feeling of accomplishment, because it's something unusual, something different, that is start from the idea, and you want to have a beer which was not looking as the wort. You want some change, you want some flavor, with the difficulty that having flavors from a beer without alcohol, it's unusual. You expect flavors from a normal beer. And the first time I taste, especially on the industrialized product, because one thing is different. When you are during development, you are able to be in touch with products, but you want to make sure when you industrialize and the product come to life, that same expectation remains, that the product quality remains, and the brewer it's happy to use because it's easy. You pitch the yeast and you make it. It's not something complicated, and I think the feeling I personally have is that you have a very, very good non-alcoholic beer, and it's also very easy to use, and we finally did it. So that is a very big accomplishment.
I was really surprised because technically the consumption of the sugar is very low. And we are basically even less than 10% of the total consumption. So the ADF, apparent degree of fermentation, is close to 10. So I've anticipated to have some worty character, to have some sweet character. Nothing appeared. The product was clean, very clean, no worty character, no sweetness. Some things like a little body, because the gravity is relatively low. We speak about an original gravity between 6 and 8 Plato, so it's quite limited. But there is absolutely no off flavor. We have no H2S, we have no diacetyl, crispy beer, very clean beer. It was very challenging and was really surprising me. So we said, we are on the good way with that yeast. Let's continue.
If I need to give a message to the brewer, with fear, you go nowhere. You need to try it. But today, we can provide the right procedure and the right ways to do it. You will need to do this because that's no longer a trend. Some people are needing to have some non-alcoholic products in your brewery to make sure they are driving safely, or maybe they are pregnant. When using SafBrew LA-02 or on whatever, in a large sense, producing no or very low content alcohol beers, you want to make sure you follow the advices of your supplier, because we have done tons of tests in many scales. We understand the difficulties behind, so you want to make sure you can rely on us to support you on that trajectory. It's an opportunity for playing more with the raw materials, playing more with the base, always with that expectation of a flavorful conventional beer, to bring that to life in a non-alcoholic version. And regardless their technical issues, we can always support, and they can always contact us while using our solutions. If it's LA-02 or SafBrew LA-01, we are here to support the brewers.
As a conclusion, I would say that with the SafBrew LA-02, we produce an easy drink beer, and the story is not finished. We will continue.